Hello everybody, thanks for tuning in. My name's Kelson. I'm a fitness and sport instructor based out of Borden. Today I'm excited to introduce you guys to the concept of gait analysis, as well as some muscular assessments as they pertain to running. I will also be highlighting some kind of generic safe running cues to ensure that you're moving as efficiently and as safely as possible. Running is a very intricate activity, and it takes a lot of kinesthetic awareness, body awareness, to understand what it is that's happening during the moment. I'm excited for you guys to build a better kinesthetic understanding of what your habits are while you're running, as well as use these muscular assessments to try to understand why it is you do what you do. At the end of the day, the objective of this video is not for you to understand completely what these assessments are telling you. If we have an understanding of how the body works and what's expected during running, you may be able to take the information from these assessments and just run with them yourself, right? The great part of these assessments is they also act as a great training tool to help balance or fix the issue that you're experiencing. So that's something that you can tinker with. But as always, it's important to refer to a professional when you have no idea what's going on, right? You'll be able to take this information presented in the assessments and give them to your fitness and sport instructor, and they should be able to interpret the information and design a program that's going to sustain your pursuit of running and hopefully avoid any kind of major setback vis-a-vis injury or anything like that. Also, for more advanced runners, this is going to be a great way to add an edge to your game. If you're more concerned about mileage and timing and efficiency and just being the best that you can be, this is where the professional comes in, because you can just give us the information and not worry about it. We'll take care of the programming and you just have to follow suit. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to these concepts. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, guys, so as mentioned, we're going to be proceeding into a gait assessment. For this assessment, I'm going to be using one of our treadmills in our cardiovascular area. Due to the nature of how our cardio area is set up, it's going to be hard for me to give you the best picture possible for a side and a front view, but I'm going to do the best that I can here, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to spend about 15 minutes on the treadmill. I'm going to be recording myself for the duration of the 15 minutes. Halfway through, I'm gonna stop and switch angles. So at like 8 minutes, I'm just gonna hop off the treadmill and move the camera to a different area so that I can start to see a front view of my legs while I'm running, as well as the side view. So I'm starting the belt. I need to make sure that I can see from my shoulders down to my feet. So we're going to be observing some basic running techniques here. You're going to notice that my eyes are forward, my chest is open. I have a slightly braced core, but I'm allowing for some spinal rotation. My arms are bent to about 90 degrees. I'm keeping my elbows tighter to the torso and doing more of a chin to hip swing with my arms, keeping my hands relaxed. I'm trying to strike the ground with my foot aligning underneath my structure. It should go ankle, hip, shoulders, head. And as I'm accelerating, I'm going to have a slight anterior tilt to my hips. Well, notice in this section here, I'm demonstrating a little bit too much bounding, where I'm disconnecting from the ground and crashing down on almost a locked knee. This isn't going to be ideal, as it's going to increase the amount of impact on our joints. We want to try to make sure that all of our energy is going forward and not up. Posture is also going to be important as we start to fatigue. You'll notice here my head drops, my shoulders round forward, and I collapse in on myself. This is going to make it very difficult for us to catch our breath and maintain a proper breathing tempo. We should try to facilitate a speed that allows us to maintain control over our breathing without a breakdown of our posture. Another compensation that's going to be common is having an apropulsive gait. You'll notice as I push off, I work around my big toe and my foot swings towards the outside, and I kind of have this little twisting walk motion going on. Obviously, if our energy isn't pushing us forward, it's going to be wasted doing this kind of lateral movement. This is going to be very common for people with a flat foot type or someone who's lacking proper toe or ankle mobility. Going back to more of a regular style gait without trying to demonstrate or accentuate any kind of compensations, you'll notice that I'm connecting with my mid to rear foot. I strike the ground with the heel, I roll forward to the midfoot. Most of my limb is going to be centered closer under my midline. All of these things are going to help to minimize impact forces as I'm running and improve efficiency by allowing me to transfer my energy forward instead of, collapsing my arches or going into the air or anything that would take away from our ability to drive our energy forward. So the front view is going to be a great way to see how our foot, ankle, knees, and hips are going to be interacting with each other. You're going to see in this demonstration, I'm striking the ground with kind of a neutral gait. I'm going to transition into more of a collapsed arch where I get that apropulsive gait, the leg swings out, my joints collapse. Not a very good position to be in. This is going to be more prone to somebody with a flatter foot, or somebody lacking that arch strength. In this next position here, you're going to see me more externally rotated, more of a duck foot position. This could be a demonstration of somebody who's severely restricted through the ankles or has a very rigid foot type that doesn't want to unlock. And in this next position, again, I come into a demonstration of a little excessive bounding as I'm running. Just make note of some of the arch collapse that occurs as I strike the ground and carry through to my push-off. You'll see that foot turning out. Again, it's just not an ideal position to be in. And that brings us to the end of the gait assessment. From here, we're going to be looking at our muscular assessment, and we're going to start off with our standing foot posture. Here, I'm just taking a visual note whether my arches are super flat and collapsed against the ground, more neutral, little bit of definition, or externally rotated, very high arches. The flat foot and the high arch are going to be the ones that we're most concerned about. A neutral foot kind of gives you the best of both worlds and allows the foot to function a little more naturally. Once we've done this standing assessment, we translate into a single calf raise. What we're looking at here is your posterior tib and your calf strength. We want to make sure that your body can support the weight of your body as you strike the ground. If you have a flat arch, you're not going to be able to lock out your foot. If your post tib and your calf are strong enough, you should be able to hold this single leg position for 30 seconds. Again, if you're internally collapsed, you're going to have a hard time getting that heel up off the floor. So try to make sure that you keep that foot in more of a active position. Now that we've checked your arch, we're going to check the ankle joint. We're going to be assessing this with a yoga block, a wall, and an open space. Starting off with the level 1 assessment, we're going to take the yoga block on its thinnest section and we're going to place it up against the wall. Bringing our foot up in contact with the block, we're going to try to bring that knee towards the wall without that heel lifting up off the floor. If you can do this, the ankle mobility is okay. Make sure as we try to connect to the wall that we don't let that arch collapse. The next level, level 2, is going to be dropping the block down to its next level, but don't forget to check both sides. As mentioned, dropping the block to the next thickest section. To me, this demonstrates like more than adequate range of motion as well as strength in the lower extremity for running. Again, check both sides. If you really want to check the boundaries of your lower extremity strength and mobility, you're going to go to this next level 3 section where we're coming up onto the ball of our foot and we're driving that knee forward towards the wall in a knee over toe position. This can be pretty hazardous, so if you have any issues with your knees, I would recommend avoiding that last level. Again, be sure to check both sides. Simply put, if our ankles aren't mobile, we're not going to be able to run effectively. And moving on to our lunge assessment, this is going to be able to allow us to gauge your lower extremity mobility, as well as the strength of your quadriceps, feet, ankles, etc., all the primary movers of running. Ideally, we want to be able to have a nice vertical shin. We're going to have our knee extended behind the hip, and we're going to have our our heel turned out and our toes tucked under. We want to try to maintain a glute squeeze and a nice tall torso and hold this position for 30 seconds. Being able to hold this position for the 30 seconds demonstrates a fundamental strength of your feet, ankles, hips, and core to at least facilitate the initial stages of running. If you're incurring injuries as a more advanced runner and you can't hold this position, it could be an indication that strength is going to be your limiting factor that's causing the injury. As always, don't forget to check both sides. And make sure that while you're holding your isometric lunge, you maintain that good joint position. We don't want the knee tracking out or in. We want to keep a nice vertical. And moving into the second last assessment, we're going to be taking a look at a single leg hip flexor check. This is going to be assessing your balance and the coordination between your feet, core, and hips, as well as being able to assess the basic strength and endurance of your hip flexors, which are responsible for picking the leg up every time you take a step. So you're going to bring your leg up to parallel. You can see it took me a second to find my balance there. That's fine. We want to try to engage our support leg by driving it down into the ground and engaging the glutes. As well as maintaining some, tension through that hip flexor, right? Even though I'm holding that 90-degree position, I want to make sure that my muscles are active. Maintain this position for 30 seconds. As always, don't forget to check both sides for the assessment and try to make note whether one side was easier or harder. Was it the strength of the hip flexor? Was it finding the balance on the single leg? What about the assessment did you find difficult? You can try extending your arms out to the side for balance as well, but I find it easier just to pick a spot on the wall and focus. And last but not least, we're going to be doing a thoracic spine rotational assessment. So as we run, I'm sure you guys can feel it. You do have a little bit of rotation through your spine every time you take your step. And if we're restricted through that thoracic mobility, that rotational ability, it can impact the way we move negatively. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay on our side. We're going to bring our leg up to 90 degrees and support it with a yoga block. From there, I'm going to draw the bow across my chest and try to get both shoulder blades flat against the floor within 30 seconds. You can see I have my timer there. I wasn't able to get my arm straight just because I ran out of space. Ideally, you want to try to turn yourself into a T. A big thing here is that as we do this rotation, we want to make sure that that thigh does not come up off the yoga block. We want to try to make sure we keep that down. Otherwise, it's showing that we have a very tight core. We need to work on some of that rotational ability. As always, don't forget to check both sides, making note of maybe one side being more difficult than the other. I know I definitely have one side that takes a little bit longer to settle in. I'm still able to facilitate both shoulders to the ground within 30 seconds. It just takes a little longer on one side than the other. Thoracic rotation isn't something that's necessarily going to injure you. Definitely you could start to develop some trap strains and headaches and things like that. Primarily, lack of rotation through the spine is just going to take away from your movement efficiency. You're not as able to transition from one leg to the other as efficiently as you could. All right, everybody, that unfortunately brings us to the end of our workshop today. So I'd like to just kind of take it from the top and recap. Today, we covered how to use a camera and a tripod to record yourself running from your side view as well as the front view. We covered some basic faults that you may see while running that are going to take away from your movement efficiency as well as potentially contribute to injury. We were able to cover some generic muscular assessments as specific to running as we can be while still keeping it simple. These are going to help to make sure that our body has the mobility and the strength that we need to engage in the rigors of running. Finally, we were able to cover some basic safe running tips such as posture, breathing, and things of that nature. So I hope you were able to learn something about yourself. If you haven't taken the time to record yourself already, definitely do it. It will give you a lot of information on how you can improve your own movement patterns. Just as a closing thought, there's a few things that I'd like to touch on. So statistically in the Canadian Armed Forces, running has a very high rate of injury out of all the activities you guys choose to pursue as far as physical fitness goes. A lot of these injuries are going to be resulting from a lack of understanding of the kinesthetic principles that we've outlined throughout the video, as well as too much mileage too soon. A lot of us don't understand that the body's going to take quite a bit of time for us to adapt to the forces that we're encountering while we're running, and kind of our ego is ready to go before the rest of us is. So just make sure that while you are running, whether you're advanced or beginner, make sure that you're making these incremental increases in your running. Also, don't forget to include some deload periods and cross training. It is going to be important to switch up the modality so that your body has a chance to recover from what you're doing. Finally, have fun with it, right? Running can be one of those frustrating things where everybody's looking for picture perfect, and very often we're not going to be able to do that. And that being said, if you do happen to sustain an injury through your practices, don't let that discourage you, right? Take a second, pause, and most importantly, if you're lost and don't know where to go, consult a professional. That's what we're here for. This is our, this is our job. This is what we love to do. So from PSP Borden, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. Feel free to check out our local YouTube channel, PSP Borden, and be sure to stay tuned for all of our other national streams. As always, keep training, stay safe, but most importantly, have fun.